Welcome to the positivity stream this evening. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for being here. Hang on, there's meant to be a watermark on. I noticed YouTube has a watermark feature. Well, never mind. So, tip number 1: don't worry about perfectionism. It'll be all right. Now you can relax. You'll notice that. Hey, I hope you got your notepads ready, because I think to be happy takes a bit of effort sometimes, and you can ask people, how you feeling, and you get the kind of robotic answer, oh, I'm all right, okay. You ask, are you happy? And they go, yeah, I'm happy, can't complain, that sort of thing. But really, they're not too thrilled, and it's a bit of a sad, unfortunate thing. So quite a lot of the times we tend to find, as a result of our expectations and our demand for perfectionism and everything has to be just so, it leaves us with disappointment. We're so coddled or spoiled that we're not used to not getting our way. Good evening, D-Man. Good evening, Raw. I will give you a wrench. One moment. And these wrenches, I know that there's a bit of an issue sometimes about wrenches. It's no biggie thing. These aren't these aren't penile extensions, don't worry. It's just a little bit of validation to know that you're somewhat protected, you're acknowledged, and I know you're not a cloned account or a troll or something like that, and you're someone I trust and respect and appreciate being here. So just a little bit of gratitude and things like that. So no big deal, really. Anyway. So yeah, I reckon it's about time we had a bit of positivity injected into the community. Everyone's always sort of criticizing, nagging, pointing the finger, complaining, moaning. I'm sure you've got plenty of examples. Not many people are actually like, hey, you know what? Despite all that, life is good, in a quirky sort of way. Despite all the chaos around me, I suppose things could be worse, eh? So we're going to get into a few reminders that it's easy for us to push aside, because when you have troubles, drama, issues, we attribute a great deal of importance to it at the detriment of our happiness, and that's a unreasonable, I believe, price to pay. Like, we shouldn't forsake our happiness just because things are bothering us. In some ways, we should value our happiness that much more, so that these troubled times remind us of the things that we should be grateful for. And we're going to notice as we get into this conversation that the sort of domino, the contagion aspect of happiness can be very exhilarating. Well, it depends. It depends what kind of mindset you're in. Can you be happy for someone else? If you're so stuck in your own woes and calamities, then it's going to be hard for you to be happy for someone else. In much the same way, you may notice that you have to be in the mood to be able to laugh at something, to watch a comedy, for instance. Otherwise, you're just, not to sound demeaning, but a bit too grumpy for a bit of comedy. So it requires a bit of effort. It doesn't come that easy, but it can at the same time, when you de-escalate the value attached to the negative side. So you can almost imagine it like a little bit of a seesaw. It's where do you want to direct your energy? Whichever direction you're placing it is how the seesaw is going to pivot. So if you find it hard to be happy, perhaps try the other way and just try not to be upset and grumpy. And in a process of elimination, you might surprise yourself and actually find the more kind of enlightening, humorous side of things. So, hey, good to see people are rolling in here. We're here to heal. We're here to be happy. So positivity, and supporting one another. Share the love and light, everybody. We're not gonna, sunshine and rainbows, that sort of thing. But we're gonna try and do it in a more logical sort of, not so hippy dippy, pseudo, talking out the side of our mouth like we don't know anything. We're not going to just say things because it sounds nice. We're going to put a bit of context and a bit of understanding and why it is such a precious, well, I don't want to say commodity, but asset to your life to enhance your quality of living. Because isn't that what life is about, an experience? So isn't it a good idea, at least on paper it is, to have a good experience in life? So in that pursuit, now we'll be careful here with this idea of pursuit of happiness, but unfortunately this is probably where we're going to have to start off from, because we have to work with our conditioning, at least at the early stages, because we are yet to know how else to navigate. So as much as we might already be aware, like we've looked in the cheat book or whatever, we skipped a few pages and we realized that you shouldn't be chasing happiness. Unfortunately, be honest, most people probably are. So let's work with it. And what do we notice in the community? Is there any criticism as such? I'm talking about like a symptomology, patterns of behavior. What do we notice? We see a lot of repetition, a lot of externalization, and I don't know if any of you feel the same way, but it can be quite exhausting, going round and round, covering the same kind of topics, making the same sort of points. And for what? For a minuscule of a return, in the sense of a kind of satisfaction. It's almost like post-nut clarity. So in the instance, it might feel good, but an hour later or so, you're back to needing that repetition to continually perk us up, prop us up, or whatever, to almost like the hamster wheel going around again. So is this really the solution, or is this a way of just coping because we are lacking the tools, and we lie to ourselves in a way that, yeah, this will suffice as long as we can keep in this cyclic, predictable pattern. We know that happiness is just around the corner, even if it's a very low value quality type of happiness. So unfortunately, that means we're on a diet of crumbs here when it comes to our happiness. And think about it, really, is that something people deserve? That your quality of life, your life experience, your memories are fleeting and they amount to crumbs, So what other kind of things do we notice happening, taking place? We see a few digs, quite a lot of digs, like cheap shots, making fun out of the people's expense, sort of things like that. And perhaps the idea of getting vengeance or justice or retribution. There's that German word, was it Schadenfreude or something, or karma? But we notice that this is outcome dependent behavior. To have the expectation that you can be happy for a brief moment, depending on the external outcome of what's happening. So you're not self-generating your own happiness. You're chasing the happiness. You're dependent, and in a way, this is artificially creating an illusion of happiness. And obviously, it's trying to generate happiness out of negativity. Now, there is like that kind of thing where you get that sort of dark sense of humor, where you can kind of see the funny side of some like nihilistic sort of ruminations. Hands up, I'm guilty of making fun of things like that, you know. But that aside, anyway, we're looking at the more at the moment in the conversation. We're looking at more of the cheaper ways of deriving happiness. And perhaps also we at some point we need to clarify, like, what does happiness actually mean? Like, what does it mean to you? Like, is it what constitutes happiness? Because so this kind of conversation parallels a little bit, or walks beside the idea of self-love, or being able to have love in general. So I don't really want to conflate the two topics here, because I think I've got enough material for a separate conversation about self-love, self-worth, self-respect. But those sort of topics or areas, we're very close in that. In terms of this conversation, you know, your happiness is a cousin to your self-love. So we're just breaking things down here, so we can get our hands on it, because it seems to be so aloof. Happiness is always running away from us. And yeah, so like an artificial substitute, we try to find things to make us feel better. And if we're honest and look deep within, it's not the real article, is it? It's not really genuine happiness. So we feel kind of not just disappointed, but hollowed out. Is that a good way of putting it? A bit kind of like a deficit is taking place, that we feel even less deserving of a happiness, and incapable of not just achieving it, but generating it, of appreciating it, of holding on to it. And we can't be content in the moment to really absorb or surround ourselves with it. It's almost like as soon as happiness comes along, it's so foreign and alien, you push it away at the same time. And you become more and more comfortable with the nagging, with the moaning, with the negativity, and that familiarity of being negative, being hot-headed or something like that, unfortunately, is a bad sign that things have become neglected. Now, it's up to you as an individual whether or not, you know, that's the way you want to be, and if that's how you want to be, that's your right and choice and everything like that. But as a decision, as a choice, you know, you can choose otherwise. And explore, and that in itself can be another form of happiness. We will at some point. I will be asking you questions like, what is it you guys? What makes you happy? So we can share some ideas to inspire one another. But we're gonna focus on the obstacles to begin with. So this stream, I suppose, could be in the series like self-care : obstacles to happiness. I don't know, as a sort of alternative title. So carrying on with some of this happiness blockers. Well, obviously, anger, frustration, resentment, jealousy, fear. Fear will be an important one to cover in a minute. Survivalistic urges. I'm sure you can add some more to it, but it's hard to. You can see why happiness is nowhere near this equation if you're too preoccupied with all this other stuff. So going back to that kind of seesaw, if you find it so hard to force yourself to be happy, which I don't recommend you doing, then perhaps minimize some of this other things to allow space to accommodate happiness coming in. Because you might think happiness is the reward. I'm pretty sure you'll find that happiness brings with it its own set of rewards, post kind of thing, like additional. Happiness is just kind of like the beginning of, I don't know, like a gift, if you want to call it that. At this stage in life, it is kind of like a gift. It's so rare to find people who can be actually just happy, and not necessarily have to have a definition. Going back to the idea of like, you don't have to have perfected answers to be able to, or the emotional language, vocabulary to articulate what happiness means to you. It's a feeling, and feelings are abstract. So you kind of, it's in your guts, is what I'm trying to convey. And now you could be a little bit kind of in denial or deluded. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you could be like lying to yourself that you're happy, like fool yourself into happiness. But that intuition, that spirit within you will you'll know it's been forced, and it comes at that sort of, in that situation, it's not so much trying to convince me you're happy. You're trying desperately to convince yourself you're happy. So as part of that blockers to your happiness is the inability to be honest with yourself. The more you could be honest, the more you could allow yourself to be vulnerable. Another key word there, because, and it seems kind of paradoxical, but look at it the other way. If you're very rigid, very defensive, very hard-headed, then you're creating a barrier. You're blocking the happiness out, because to allow happiness to come in, to relax, to let your guard down, you can see how that elicits a bit of vulnerability with it. To open up your heart, to let the sort of inner child freedom to run around carefree. You can see how happiness can be quite daunting for some people because of that vulnerability aspect. But if you can be honest, if you can allow yourself to be vulnerable, you can allow yourself to connect with other people, you allow yourself to trust your environment. Now you're reducing that survival instinct. If you can allow yourself to form relationships, to have intimacy, to see people in their essence eye to eye, you can see how this is a very fertile ground here for happiness to take place. So happiness also carries with it then an element of innocence. you can bumble around and still be happy. Again, going back to a reiteration of this, it doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, if you're pushing for perfectionism, happiness is going to have a hard time with that. So no wonder you can maybe, for example, trip up, drop your coffee, bumble around and see the funny side of things. You can laugh at yourself, you catch yourself in the moment. So happiness can be quite a surprising sort of jovial kind of thing that catches you off guard. It doesn't judge you, but it kind of laughs with you and sees you for who you are. You don't have to pretend to be perfect. Happiness is sort of like, it's like, hey, you're human, nothing wrong with that. It's cool. Like, guess what? The rest of us are human too. We all make mistakes. Let it go. And so in that sense, these kind of concepts, when you direct your mind in such a such a way, you see when we talk about like narcissism and symptoms and traits, we see a package going on. They've got entitlement, they've got grandiosity, they've got denial, they've got double standards. We've got a package going on. Same with kind of like happiness. We can see that you've got a negative package and a positive package. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to open the door to happiness first. You can open like the ability to allow yourself to be vulnerable, and that gives way for other things, for the happiness to follow suit. I've forgotten why I mentioned that, but I was basically going to say that along with the happiness, along with the innocence, was that the word I was looking for? Innocence. The ability to play, the ability to express without fear. And it comes as a package with other things. You might notice, for example, overall, your mental health will probably improve. You'll start to see the positive in situations. And subsequently, if your mental health is improving, your physical health might also improve. People, you might use words like, especially if they're a woman, like maybe they're more radiant or something like that. You see the color in their skin, or they start to smile. Dare I say it, they smile. How powerful that is. I remember for a long time, I found it hard to smile. To be able to have a good chuckle, a good laugh where your sides are hurting, fun stuff, good stuff. And so, and this can carry over to other people. This is where that kind of infectiousness, a positive infection, positive contagion is what society is sorely needed. It kind of reminds me. So my kid was being angry, like she's being frustrated. She's wanting to sort of shout and have a strop, and she's probably irritated at the fact that I'm trying to tickle her, but she can't help but giggle and laugh. So there's this weird mixture of like anger, but giggly and sort of baby-like giggle, like cutesy kind of giggle, because she's still got that characteristic in her. And it's not demeaning her what she's frustrated about, but sometimes what I'm trying to say is that sometimes it can be a bit hard to be angry when you're surrounded by people who are trying to cheer you up. It's almost like a reversal of, instead of the effort it takes to be happy, now you've got to put effort in to be angry. And so laughing, so it shows you that in her core, really, she wants to be happy. And she or people, society are finding reasons to be cynical. So a misplaced direction of energy. And we need to be more mindful of this. It's kind of like the same, it's in the same sort of realm of, like the company, the proximity of those you hang around with, it kind of rubs off on you. And especially if you're someone with poor boundaries, or you're quite impressionable or influenced by people. So it should be no shock or surprise if you're hanging around negative, angry sort of dudes all the time, that you'll start to pick up their mannerisms. Upon the realization, you now have a decision: is that how you want to be? And if not, then perhaps you're going to have to consider either finding different company, or at least reducing the exposure, so that you're not absorbing, especially like if you call yourself an empath, you absorb other people's emotions. Well, then you're going to have to sort of reduce that exposure, as if, like, the dog and the owner. The owner is all fuming, like effing this, effing that, and the dog is kind of like growling, so that kind of phenomena. And to make matters more compounded, if we're not careful, like without this effort at this stage and our conditioning, it will seem like an effort to be happy or content or to enjoy life. Later on, we'll realize with the practice, things get easier, and we realize it's not such an effort. If anything, it inverts, and it becomes an effort to really upset something. Like for someone to upset you, you have to allow it to take, I have to grant you permission to upset me. So without this effort to enjoy life at your own pace, going back to this idea of digesting repetitive negative content, we confuse this exhilaration as enjoyment, because probably anyway, we find it like an adrenaline rush, and that adrenaline functions in a way of priming you ready for action. So it almost gets a little bit tribalistic, or it almost resonates with our Unga Bunga caveman brain, where we feel like we're on the hunt. And if we're on the hunt with the adrenaline, we're finding content, we're finding what we think are crucial little nuggets of information, or we're sticking it to the enemy or whatever. We feel, yeah, I got my little bit of justice. It makes us feel alive. And to have that kind of sentiment, that it's like, is this what it's about, in a way where people feel so dead inside? They got such a low level of self that this negativity is the coping mechanism of, in a basic way, of trying to feel like we matter, that we exist. So it's the great come in. It's the, here's my vajayjay, hear it roar. I'm alive and I matter. And so when we address the want more appropriately, like basically what I'm saying is, if we address our low self-esteem properly with responsibility, then we won't necessarily need, or hopefully we won't need at all, to feed that self-esteem through this negative way. And that's the basis of perhaps why it's kind of like the shortcut to feeling better. And that kind of tallies up with when people are putting, when they're shaming, when they're guilting you, when they're ridiculing you, it's kind of shortcut laziness. It's like, I haven't got the ability to make myself feel better, so the only way I can do that is by putting you down instead. So I don't need to change. I could just put you down, and that will make me feel better. Now, once you are able to do these things for yourself, there'll be no need to put someone else down, and you'll probably see them in a different way. They will not serve a purpose for your coping inadequacies. Maybe I shouldn't use inadequacies. You're underdeveloped. Hopefully, you'll work on to improve your skill set. But anyway, so fighting is confused with feeling alive. And as I've described in other streams before, the drama becomes an arena for this exchange to take place, where people's happiness comes at the expense of other people, and it's not really it's artificially manufactured. So it ends up becoming an arena of decay that takes place. And this isn't what I would call as truly being alive, experiencing life and its wonders. Now, when you care about what the outside world says to you so much, there's this almost self-fulfilling prophecy that takes place, because if you're so dependent in a way that other people's opinion of you matters more than your own, and they say that you're a a-hole or something like that, it's almost like some silly, you don't want to disappoint them. Yeah, you don't want to let them down and be like, okay, you want to call me an a-hole? All right, I'll be an a-hole. Happy now, and so you feel like you've measured up to this definition of yourself. You haven't failed them, so in turn you haven't failed yourself. But think about it, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So this is one of the problems when you're so attached to other people's opinions of you, especially if they don't know you. Come on, and you should relax if you find yourself being triggered. Remind yourself, why is it you're having trouble relaxing? If I said to you, like, you got a face like a lobster or something like that, or something absolutely absurd, you wouldn't take it seriously. You'd think I was cuckoo or something like that. It's like, it's like, shame me for the size of my ears or something. But come on, don't make it so exaggerated that it's unbelievable. So you wouldn't take that seriously. But when someone says something like, you're an idiot, then you're placing their opinion of you, and yourself, like, I'm not an idiot, like, but there you are taking it seriously. Or maybe you might think, like, yeah, I can be a bit idiotic at times, but you know what I mean? Like, they're trying to goad you, they're trying to bait you, and you're falling for it. Really, I mean, what I'm illustrating there, that there are other things to be concerned about than the actual article that's being described to you, i.e., like, why is it you feel the need to defend yourself? Why does this get under your skin? Why do you value their opinion above your own? Things like that. Much more profound questions than this person who's just trying to bug you. So yeah, in the beginning, initially, you can see how, even though, like, we shouldn't be chasing happiness, but work with it. So even though we're trying to achieve happiness, and we seem to be having these blockages and barriers and hurdles we're navigating the landscape to understand what's getting in the way. Things like why it is you spend so much time defending your ego when you are not your ego. Why is it you find it difficult to relax and be calm? It's like if you can't achieve happiness, maybe can you at least achieve some calmness? Maybe that could be the gateway that leads you to happiness later on. So we need to make some baby steps if we find it very challenging. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's building the foundation. It's a good way of building the foundation because you'll have a lot of once that happiness is within reach. You've got a good foundation to bolster and support it. You've managed to regulate your emotions. You've calmed yourself down. You're able to trust your environment. You're able to trust yourself. Importantly, you're able to be honest. So, and each of these are in of themselves like value and points added. Now, unfortunately, so if you find yourself like try as you might, you can never be happy. You enjoy being upset, for example. Bear in mind, there's a good chance that this is kind of like conditioned into you. And going back to that, you're hooked on the adrenaline side of things. So it would be even more. That's why. So it would be a vested interest, worth acknowledging and reducing the stresses, so that you can relax and calm down. And so the adrenaline addiction reduces, and then you'll be able to let go, hopefully, of this, what you believed at the time was such an important, dire need of knowing what's going on in the drama sphere, and be like, you know what, I've got other things that I value, and I'm going to put them higher in my priority list. Maybe phone an old friend I haven't spoken to for a long time and see how they're doing. So you get to learn to, in a way, live to fight another day, my friend. It doesn't all have to be done in the heat of the moment, the impulsivity, the urgency. It's like, relax. It's not going anywhere. So it's almost like a two-prong issue here. You've got the how do I build positivity in my life, and how do I address the negativity in my life? And you kind of need to do both at the same time. There's no point just trying to spit out light and rainbows, spirituality, and just be like, love yourself, as if that's gonna work. How are you going to love yourself if you're too busy hating yourself? You know what I mean? So you got to address this power balance or energy balance. You've got to be able to regulate it, which means you need to have that kind of understanding. Now, a couple of more bits that ideas we can play around with, and then we'll get into like a bit of show and tell, share your kind of happiness experiences. I hear in the way people talk sometimes that the way they sort of describe their happiness, it's like they're dreamers. They talk in idealizations. They talk in utopias. In my ideal world, sort of thing. If I could have my way, So it's like, it's almost, they're saying I can't be happy because, well, like I said earlier, like because outcome dependent, because there is some kind of excuse is in the way. So this is a little bit like victimhood language. I'm scared to be happy, so I need to create this problem and pin it on that as my reason why I can't do the things that really I should be able to do for myself. But the idea anyway of dreaming of this faraway happiness, and especially in terms of actual like delusional kind of, not clinically delusional, but I mean, like, uh, imagination wise, we can see how attractive the dreamer is, because it allows them to escape the harshness of reality, because their reality is they're not happy. So what's a quick fix is to start dreaming, because in your dreams you create your dreams, you control your dreams, you can shape them and mold them. You could be anything you want. You can do a little bit of role playing within your dream, and in that space you're protected. Gives you a sense of security, reassurance. But it is a dream after all. It's not realistic, and will set you up for failure ultimately. So we have to be careful with our imaginations and dreamings and ideals, and we need to kind of bring it back down to reality, despite the harshness. Or we what will serve us well is to remind ourselves that with our distorted senses, our perception of reality is probably skewed. We're probably exaggerating the what we're seeing, and we might find that it's not actually, like, once we knuckle down and get on with things, it's probably not as bad as we thought it was. How many of you procrastinate, for example, or have a to-do list that the amount of time you stared at it, it's like, I could have had this done ages ago. Why haven't you done it? Because you became the obstacle to your goal. Anyway, and as much as you might believe you don't deserve to be happy, you do need to kind of drill it into your skull that this is probably a misbelief, that these aren't your genuine thoughts and desires, that you do actually deserve to be happy. The trouble is that you weren't shown, probably. Now, this parallels with the idea of self-love. It's like, you do deserve love. The trouble is, you probably weren't shown love in the way that you needed it when you were younger. So you don't know, it's a stranger to you. And likewise, so happiness is a stranger to you. Well, this gives you the opportunity in terms of like a relationship now. So you have a relationship with your self-love, and you have a relationship with what happiness means to you. And relationships, as you understand them, they require maintenance, like boundaries. You can't just say, all right, bingo, I'm happy now, and leave it and neglect it. No, you're going to have to tend to your happiness. You're going to have to have ups and downs with your happiness. You're going to have to so I'm trying to remind myself. I forget. You have to remind yourself of the value of your relationship. Accepting is another big key word. So, okay, this will really belong in the self-love topic. But if you struggle to self-love, how about you self-accept? Can you accept who you are, the goods and the bad? Maybe we can work on the self-love later. So can you accept whatever form of happiness you have, and can you allow it to grow? Or do you have to have control, tight, rigid control over your happiness? The stars must be aligned before I'll be able to allow myself to be happy. It's like, relax, loosen up a little bit. So I think I rambled as a generalization anyway. I hope that gives us some food for thought and consideration of how I don't want to say complicated and make it sound like it's an unachievable problem or solution for a problem, but I do want to kind of bring up the nuances. I'm trying to be careful not to say complexities to make it sound, because then it kind of sounds like like too daunting. But the nuances, so we realize that no wonder I struggle to be happy, because the way the message is generally put out, it's like, hey, you, why are you so grumpy? Just be happy. If we see now that it's not that simple, it's not that straightforward. There needs to be the groundwork needs to be in place. There are sort of like preconditions or precursors to allow happiness to be facilitated. You can't just, hey, presto, boom, you're happy just like that. At least not when you've got such baggage in terms of the negativity. Later on, you might be able to get to a point where bad things is like water off a duck's back, and you could be that quick with, like, you know what, remind myself, because happiness is part of your self-care ultimately as well. So if you prioritize your self-care and you've got that self-esteem, then you'll know, like, let's say something bad happens, you'll know, right, the way I need to deal with this, I need to make myself happy. Okay, tonight I've had a rough day. Tonight I'm gonna go out and have a good meal. I'm gonna order a bit of ice cream. And you could be happy in knowing that in a couple of hours, it's like, yeah, I can't wait to get out of work today because I know what I'm doing later on, and haha, you can't, get me down. That's a bit of discipline. Okay, so you got things that. I'm very grateful seeing the stream just flowing. Sorry, I haven't really been looking, but I am looking now. So if you want to throw in some ideas, things that make you happy, and if you would be so kind to add a quick, like, why as such it makes you happy. Like, what's the takeaway from you doing it? I'll give you a moment while I sip on my tea here. I've had to lace it with sugar. I was on a stream on Good Mother's channel, and I had a hypo, and I can feel my sugar levels getting a little bit low. Trying to improve my medical physical health, and that makes me feel happy. So we can't underestimate the knock-on effect of the power of happiness, of love and light. As corny as it sounds, I know. Right. So I see Mr. Hemi's talking about a to-do list that's never done. Okay, Peng says a good point. Yeah. So people who want to dislike you will find a reason regardless of what you do. Yeah. And the irritating part is that even if you kind of accommodate their demands, they're still not happy. Even if you bend over backwards for them, they're still never happy. So why bother? Why try? You start to realize what's really going on here is it's not well, it comes down to, it's nothing against you personally. You become the mirror to the dislike that they have with themselves. They're trying to project onto you. Because if they're, maybe we need to do a stream on interactions. But if it's like, if you feel like you're talking to the wind, or falling on deaf ears, like you don't feel like you exist, kind of thing. Like it might be a bit spooky, in a sort of way from their point of view. No, you don't. Um, you're talking to yourself, and they're talking to their selves. Um, so really, when they're telling you how much they dislike you or what it is you're doing, it's not so much a personal attack at you. It's more of a case that they're disappointed with who they are and have to externalize it in such a way. With that understanding, it could be quite a revelation from your point of view, because you really get to sort of see, you can disconnect and see what it is that their motivations and driving factors that make them say such a thing. And you realize that you're more than likely, your presence is part of that coping mechanism for them. Like without you being present there, then without you being there to take, like a scapegoat, to take the shame from them, then they're stuck with it, with themselves. So even though they're not going to say thank you for being their punching bag, you can give yourself a bit of a pat on the back and be like, I see. They look at me as their caretaker. Now that doesn't mean you stand there and take it, but you'd be like, oh right, that says something about your attributes, that you have the ability. It's not really a good, like, it's trying to turn like an abuse into a positive way. It's like you've got the fortitude to have the tolerance to withstand their abuse. It means there's a strength there. Not that you should allow it anyway. Anyway, moving on. Okay. Oh, wow. Wait. I see Mandy says something about it's not really dependent on the external, but I need a bit more context. What did she say? One man could be happy in a prison and another man unhappy in a mansion. Yeah. So yeah, like how comfortable can you be with being with yourself? You know. Thank you for everyone for your comments and contributions. You know, we're in this together. You're not alone. And on that basis, you know, if ever you feel like you're alone, don't be afraid to reach out to whoever you feel comfortable reaching out to, and just laying it out there. Just speak from your heart and just tell them how it is. We don't need to be like pussyfooting around. Just be like, hey, like whoever. I've been really hard on myself, and I don't feel good. Now, guys, we're a little bit guilty of this, fellas. So sometimes we think that when a brother, like especially, comes with a problem, you know, they want to talk to you, we think we can address the problem. Be like, right, here's your solution. Go do this, do that. Stop being so hard on yourself if that's the case, you know. And you know, we might add some other things like, hey, you got so much going for you, and don't worry, maybe I was like that at some point. And so but basically what I'm saying, we try to be a bit too pragmatic. We're too mechanical in that sense, and we tend to think that if we can provide answers or lay out a directive of commands, bingo, problem is solved. When really, sometimes just talking is what's needed, as in no solution being offered. It's just, can you be a shoulder for me? Can I just verbal diarrhea and just spout out what's going on inside me? And being there, I think they got a corny expression. What is it, like holding space? I think they might call it. But being there as just a receptacle of just as a pair of ears, just so that they can vent out, gives that person who's struggling a good opportunity to structure their own mind. In a way, they kind of fix their own problems simply by expressing them to you. So you don't necessarily need to offer them a solution. And sometimes these solutions can make them feel even more capable, or they feel less able to address it, because it's kind of, here's a solution, it's like out of reach. It's like, so it's just a suggestion that sometimes maybe it's that fine, it's a skill it's a listening skill. So you got to kind of listen, like, are they actually after a solution, or do they just want to get things off their chest because they're tense inside, and in doing so maybe they'll feel relaxed and be like, is what they're looking for, is basically what I'm saying. So let's have some more examples of what makes people happy. I suspect when we have some examples, we're going to find something quite universal or common, a common theme. Right, so Peng says, I think it's important that your happiness is not dependent on someone else or some factor other than yourself, money, success, acceptance. Yeah. So it's self-gratification and self-validation and things of that ilk, so very, very important. That's not to say you can't have best of both worlds, and like if someone gives you a gift, it makes you happy. That's like, you don't necessarily mean like I'm going to reject it. You can still allow yourself to be happy for some of the kind gestures that people do for you, but it's that basis of like you need to have that, like, primarily be able to sort of have happiness self-generating, because it's a problem because it makes you dependent. You're outsourcing your self-care. So great point there from Peng. Thank you. Goat coaching. I don't know. Were you listening? Who is it that said goat? Someone came up with, goat coach. The problem with goat coaching is that someone outside might be like, oh, this guy literally coaches goats. And then I get hired to go to a farm. I'm like, what am I doing here? But I have been, people have been asking, it's something I need to talk about at some point, like whether or not you guys want me to have one-on-one consultations, because I'm getting asked, or it's coming into conversation more and more. But that aside, because it's a separate topic from what we're talking about here. All right, so I'll give some examples, at least for some common ones, and then we're gonna point out a common theme. So what makes people happy? Like, I hear, as example, a walk out in nature is usually like number one. Be out away from the cities, be go hug a tree. The thing is, I don't know how many people actually do it. It's kind of like they talk the talk, and do they walk the walk? I don't know, but now, but honestly, I don't really do that, like countryside wise. Like being in a dense urban city, the best I have are like local parks. I might see some flowers, butterflies, but in any case, I try to look for the details, things that you might overlook. Might mean nothing to other people, but it kind of helps me connect with the world and to find value in things outside of societal values. And for me, anyway, I'm not sure about you, but that helps for me to have a balance. So I enjoy that. I enjoy the peace and quiet, especially when you've got a kid that's always screaming, and the kid is hyperactive and wants fireworks, or it's like an LSD trip. Her experience of life, it's quite a rush. So yeah, a nice good sunset. I like looking at this at landscape. I like the stars, the moon, looking at the weather. You know, it helps soothe. And because you might think like, what? There is no particular actual value. It's not like I'm an astrologist or whatever. It's not like I have to plan my course by the plot my direct map according to the stars. Like that makes no difference. You know, there's no real gain other than the regulation of reminding me to breathe. You know, to unwind, and that's a value. Like something as small as that can have such a big value. So, and in these moments of peace, this is where I think more of a philosophical point. It's not so much the sunset itself; it's the ability to have that kind of peace, so that you can be in your own company, presence in mind, to remind yourself like there you are, or here I am, you know, and I'm with you, and and I appreciate being in your company, because when we're back in the city with all the stress, um, we're fragmented in our mind. So you get a you can get a sense of completion by getting out into nature as an example, or whatever. It's maybe you've got a quiet room in the house where you can meditate or something. Maybe it might be in a hot bath or whatever, but wherever, the idea of being one with yourself so that you can uh, hold hands in your own company, to have completion. You can then have some appreciation, and that allows gratitude, and that in itself is yet another reward to be. It's like the gift of giving, to be grateful when someone gives you something. You can actually say, thank you, man, that really means a lot to me, instead of just like an entitled thanks, like, oh yeah, thanks for that, yeah, you're supposed to give that to me, damn it, you owe me. Like, no, it's like, I really appreciate you didn't have to do that, you did that, like, oh, I really, that touches me, because like, I'm not used to that. It's like that problem I have with people giving me compliments. That's something I'm not used to. Now I've had to kind of, with effort, train myself when someone gives a compliment, not to be so dismissing of them and be like, look, don't say that. I have to say to myself, like, no, they've gone out their way to say this to me. The least I can do is have some appreciation and gratitude, because they didn't have to do that. Even though I might not feel like I deserve it, they think highly enough of me to do it. So in a way, it would be disrespectful of me to say, don't say that, like, you see what I'm saying? So we have to train ourselves and see things differently. So that's one example anyway, like going out to nature. I like to think maybe another example could be learning, when we have that excitement of wanting to learn a new skill, or learn a new whatever subject. Because what we do when we're learning, when we want to learn, when we're building our skills or whatever, these are things that are ahead of us. They are yet to be attained. So we're kind of, it's like chasing the happiness, but instead we're chasing a skill. But once we learn it, it becomes ours. And it's a well-earned. See, before we were talking about the problems of the adrenaline rush, right? But if you're learning skills, and yeah, obviously that they're beneficial skills that you can implement into your life, then we can substitute adrenaline for a dopamine reward, and the instant gratification, the validation is like, yeah, I put the effort in, the time to learn something, bingo, it was ahead of me. Now it's with me in my hands. I'm making the most of it, and I'm on to other things now. So that dopamine will help motivate you, give you the encouragement. You can do this. You got it. You did that. You did it for yourself. You are capable, and you're building now a bit of trust in your own abilities by doing such a thing. So obviously it sounds like no brainer, right? Like go learn something, but we're trying to understand just how beneficial it really is. Helps you out, maybe make something, take these skills and make something with them. Especially if you're like a craftsman or an artist, surprise yourself, because that's always a fun kicker, right? When you get that, like, I didn't know I was capable of, I didn't know I had it in me, and it's like, my child, the secret is it was there all along. You were doubting yourself, but then you have that epiphany. It's like, I've been such a fool, like, so I really can have whatever I want if I put my mind to it. And it's like, yeah, sort of, yeah. I mean, it comes down to like your motivation and determination, and what you're willing to, how we're going back to that energy and how you want to direct it. Maybe you might need assistance, but if you're too busy being grumpy and finding things to be negative about, forget it. It ain't gonna happen. You attract what it is you seek and desire. Oh, my belly's rumbling. Your kid might. Oh, sorry, I got my notes. If you haven't noticed, I've got notes on my side. My kid complains about how bored. You might think, I'm bored. I don't know what to do. Billy said to stop dwelling on negativity. So what am I supposed to do then? It's like, I'm bored. I don't know what's exciting. I'm looking for excitement. I don't know what makes me happy. It's like, well, boredom is a wonderful thing. It gives you the opportunity to like use your imagination and be creative, right? Like you're gonna have to think now, like, what's gonna perk your interest? And so boredom is the gateway to a bit of discovery. So don't try not to mope around in boredom for the sake of boredom. Like, try not to be like I enjoy being angry, and now I enjoy being bored. I like moaning about how bored I am. It's like, no, turn that into a positivity. Like use it as a way to calibrate what catches your attention, what matters to you, because through that boredom you can start to understand things, what things are important to you, meaning, significance. And again, you might be surprised. You'd be like, oh, right, okay. Or it might be simplistic, like, I realized I needed to organize my house. I haven't done the decorating in a long time. It needs to be done, and being bored gave me the opportunity to do that. So, maybe sometimes people might talk about music, dancing or singing, and that's a nice one. That's almost like the ability to smile and have a laugh. That's a very healing type of happiness. So definitely try to encourage that. And especially if it kind of just catches you off guard, and there's a little spring in your step, and there you are doing a little tap dancing or something like that. That's almost like the spirit, that the child spirit in you is so illuminated, it's seeping out. It's almost like you can't contain the happiness anymore, even if you try. So you might look silly, obviously, but who cares really? Like, what does it matter? And there's that. It becomes a very attractive quality, that kind of. You could make a point, because one of the reasons why it's attractive is because children, and this ain't some creepy sexual thing, right? Don't get it twisted, but the innocence, the vulnerability, and the attractiveness of the child spirit. So if you're exuding this in yourself, it's almost like it's like the fountain of youth, right? You look younger, even though you might be a 70-year-old, decomposing. Sorry, I don't mean decomposing, but you know what I mean. Like you're getting older, right? You're not a spring chicken anymore. But when you've got that child spirit, it's almost like you've been revitalized, energy, and all this sort of stuff. So it can be attractive. That's what I'm saying. And it can put a smile on someone else's face. You might not be aware you're doing it. You're too busy dancing to yourself, singing your own silly little song. But there you are, spreading happiness in your presence. And that could be like a feedback loop where you can have a laugh and joke. It's like, hey, so and so, I saw you goofing around. That was pretty funny. And you're like, oh god, I was only back. They start blushing, and you're like, it's all right. So fun stuff. And fun is also another key word. When you keep that outside static and noise like where it belongs, that being outside, it's like your mind is your temple sort of thing, and it's sacred. Your peace is sacred. Your happiness is sacred. You are yet to discover this, the value, but as you build that relationship, the more important it is to you, and the more you would appreciate it and be grateful. And I think that's a good way of living. So if this is what helps bring you together in reflection, when we look at the negativity, we can see that the anger, the rage, the scorn, the bitterness, these sort of things pull you apart. And we see that juxtaposition take place. Now, a little caveat, because although I say being happy, being bored also like gives you the opportunity to be with yourself so that you can take care of yourself. Like being angry doesn't really allow you to take it. Being angry should be a signal that tells you like, whoa, we need to do this to make ourselves feel happy. We're hurting here. That really should be the message. So there's a bit of a miscommunication going on. So this isn't like extradite anger from your life completely, or like get rid of. You can't have the happiness without the negativity, right? There's a relationship there as well, but it's being able to address the negativity in a more appropriate, responsible way, which would mean, so when you do find yourself angry, you are human. You carry all these emotions, and you might ideally want to be able to pick and choose, but really it's the whole package, and they're complementary. So understand the signals and the indicators that your emotions are trying to communicate to you, which means, along with anger, like being sad is another dynamic, being depressed, that sort of realm of sorrow and upset. We can apply these skills in these areas as well, and we have a more holistic way of being at this point, hopefully, where some days we might be sad, some days we might be angry, some days we might be happy. We are never one thing. We are always in a flux of emotions, thoughts, and feelings, and things like that. Hopefully not so roller coastery like a borderline is. There is some stability, but the point is that if you put it another way, let's say you were just happy, happy, happy every day for forever. That would be something there must be something a little bit like not right here. Like, you mean you're never sad? You're never angry? It's like, no, I'm always happy. Every day is ecstasy. It's like, maybe you need to see a doctor. So there does need to be a balance, we do need that contrast, and it helps to calibrate us, and it does us well, and we become much more complete, which is another big point and lesson, or whatever, another takeaway from all of this is that completion. So there's a lot here we're covering. You see how just saying to people like, why aren't you happy, or can't you be happy, is not as straightforward as maybe, or convenient as we would like it to be. Now maybe there's some other things, ideas we can add into this. So if you want to, please feel free to leave it in the comments. But that's pretty much what I've got in terms of a topic to discuss here this evening. I hope it helps. Maybe we'll cover at some point the idea of self-love, but I'll leave it here anyway. So I'll thank everyone for being here, for showing up, for showing support, for being there for one another. Be there for yourself as well. Don't forget being there for yourself. I mean, come on now. I should go without saying, right? And I suppose you might have to do a bit of shilling, hit the like button, I suppose, if you feel so inclined. But yeah, so thank you. Smile if you can. Be happy. Unpack some of these ideas, and you'll get to take itinerary. Is that the right way of putting it? Itinerary of what, or is it inventory of these ideas? Unpack them and see, disassemble. So then you can understand how it works. So then you basically disassemble so that you are then able to reassemble, put it back together properly, or at least in a better way. And then you have a better understanding of how things fit together and how they work and interlock in the mechanisms. And you're putting your life back together. You're in control. And you never know, you might find a missing piece or something. You'd be like, oh, there it is. Or a screw loose. Be like, right, here's the problem. Right, tighten that one up. And bit of polish, and away you go. So take care. Good night. Thank you.